ting, 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 ting. Little noises, little noises. Murmuring in the background. Cows. This is an animation. Cows. This is an animation of cows. I use my bigger plate. A few days ago, sorry, my delivery guy saw me face to face and it was scary. See, for the past couple of weeks, I haven't had much time to cook. Well, no, that's a lie. It just feels like I don't really know how to cook anymore. It's like I got hit with the Men in Black pest dispenser, you know? I'm actually being a film student putting soy sauce into a hot pan and choking off to death and all the fumes. So yeah, I've been ordering food pretty much every meal by the bowl of dry cereal. Now, I'm not used to how fast I get hungry in this body. Not the Demon Hunger 2023 directed by Akuma hunger, just regular hunger. And I try to keep one of those nearby during the day. I like my bowls of dry cereal, I tend to forget. But yeah, fuck no, Jesus, the story about my delivery guy. So I decided one day that I wanted a burger. I think ever since I grew a pair of tits and started opening up my feelings, I stopped giving a shit about what I put into my body. You go a few days in a row just eating fast food and you get this weird slimy layer in your throat and you keep coughing all the time. Now, I've never smoked, but I imagine this has to be what it feels like, only a little bit more permanent. I have the opportunity to turn around, start eating healthy again, and make that throat ooze go away, but someone who's been smoking a pack a day for as long as I've been eating badly, well, they don't. Do you ever wonder what it's like to be told that you're definitely, without room for correction, going to die? So there's no easy way to tell you this. If you come in last month, you might have had a chance, but we're too late. You have approximately 5 years to live. 5 years is a long time, and every day we're all, let's be honest, pretty favorably sided die to see if we live through that day or not. There's a lot of sides on that die, probably more of a ball than a die. And one of those many hundreds of sides, there's a little skull on it. If you land on the skull, you're dead. You get hit by a car. A cinder block falls off a construction site and hits you in the head. We all know that, but the random chance involved makes it feel better. We accept that there'll always be a chance, but hey, if I can't see it coming, what am I going to do about it? If every day's a winning roll, why would today be any different, right? Winning rolls on that die for more than 400 years makes you feel pretty lucky, but I don't think you prepared me for the knowledge that my death was guaranteed, if only far away. Boy, listen, I know I should get back to the story about delivery guy, but I just thought of a really, really stupid analogy, okay, so bear with me. So, in the famous game Old School RuneScape, no matter what type of attack style is used, magic, range, melee, whatever, the damage dealt is calculated and confirmed the instant the game realizes you or an NPC is doing that attack, regardless of how long it takes for that attack to actually hit something. It doesn't matter what the goblin on the receiving end of an ice barrage does now, it's going to travel through the air a few seconds, then he'll see the big 5 over his head and die, before he hits the ground where he transforms into a pile of bones and 5 GP. It makes me wonder what I'd do if that happened to me. I hear the sound, I see the XP drop, and I realize, oh, that's it. No matter what I do in the 2 odd seconds it takes for that ice barrage to hit me, the game already knows that it hits me, how much damage it does, and whether or not that amount of damage equates to how much health I have left, or in simpler terms, whether or not it kills me. I imagine getting told your time to live probably feels quite the same way, at least in the moment you hear it. Oh, gun's been fired, you're just waiting for the bullet to hit you. It's going too fast for you to roll away now, you're not fast enough to dodge a bullet. Who do you think, you piece of shit, who do you think you are? What was I saying? Right. So I almost revealed the true nature of my world being a place of the world being a place there's demons and other mythical creatures in it to my delivery guy. He was knocking like someone's chasing him, but I figured I just didn't hear him on time, and maybe been waiting for a while and I was annoyed. I usually forget about food delivery pretty quickly after I've ordered, so this happens to me quite a lot. The thing is, this time he sounded so frantic, I ran for the door a little too fast and I slipped and I fell. Now I want you to take a look at me, okay? 7 feet and 2 inches of muscle, horn, wing, and in a better time, about 60 milligrams of prescription medication. Boom! Ah, fuck! Jesus Christ! I tend to overreact, but it did really, really hurt. Fully smacked my forehead on the floor. It's not carpeted either. I was gonna be fine, but he didn't know that. The door was closed, and to him it sounded like a bomb had gone off. Sir, he's knocking fast now. You're all right, sir. They keep insisting, yes, everything's fine. Just took a tumble. Are you sure, sir? Yes. I stand up in daze with a brand new fucking mark on my forehead. I suddenly, as is my tendency, forget all about my little situation where I'm trying to get to scene. You know, with all the supernatural appendages. Now, you lot, your little cosplay strategy is funny, but what are the chances that something this convinces you not only being one about the house alone, but that it stayed on after I took a full lad enough to just finding a crater? If I were him, I think I'd jump the shark. I think I jumped the shark. I tell the BBC that I found Lucifer after he had a massive pratfall and brought a burger to his flat. So I reach the door and I twist the key and suddenly, like Jimmy Neutron, a brain blast. Oh fuck, what am I doing? This changes everything. It might all be over if my muscle memory suddenly pulls open this door and he sees me. So he hears the click and watches the door juts open by a couple centimeters. And then fast enough to split the atom, slam shut once again, bang! And that bang, I imagine, may have actually been louder than me falling over. He screamed, ah! And I said, fuck, I'm sorry, I'm sick. Can you leave my food at the door? The code is redacted, thank you. But this guy is not like the other mistreated, underpaid delivery drivers in this world. No, he didn't rightfully take his money and go about his day. No. This man, through and through, was a good Samaritan. And he asked me, sir, are you okay? Well, he didn't sound like that. He sounded like, sir, are you okay? And of course, what am I going to say? He wouldn't believe me if I told him I was actually going on. So I told him I was fine. I'm just clumsy, a little disoriented, get a good burger and me and I'll be fine, right? Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe the guy was an empath or some shit, but he kept asking, sir, if you need help, you should open the door. And I don't know. I've always been good at keeping good face with people who aren't supposed to know this sort of thing, but I think it slipped for a moment and he could tell. All I said was, I'm fine, but he knew I was lying and he wouldn't leave. Sir, he said, my name is Mark. And I think, hang on, that's not what his name was in the livery app at all. It said his name was Callum. Is Mark his real name? Why'd he lie and say it was Callum on the app? Is he filling in for his brother? Maybe he lost his driver's seat to something named Mark due to a serious lapse in judgment or a horrible crime committed perhaps. So in order to continue supporting his family, doing the only thing you know how to do, he made a new account with a fake ID called Callum instead. Meanwhile, Mark has been talking for a while and I realize I haven't been listening because I'm wondering just how many times this guy has gone through various delivery services and wondering just how many fake names he may actually have. You know, he might actually be a better lie than me. Oh, I just felt this weird pang in my dick like I just felt a countess at lying or something. Anyway, by the time I managed to set my intention back on the better lie between us, as pathetic as it makes me feel, I hear him say what sounded like, whatever's going on, sir, I can help you. Now, I wasn't prepared in this point in my day to have a delivery guy ask for knowledge behind his comprehension, but what I needed was someone who would understand me. And for lack of a better explanation to why I did what I did next, my theory about his double, triple life as a Mark Callum, whoever made me feel like I could trust him. So I decided to tell him everything. Now, I started so at first, of course. There's no way you believe me. I told him I was a centuries-old demon who was still grappling with the guilt of accidentally murdering an 8-year-old boy I felt like a father to, so I decided to put it in more believable terms. I told him I couldn't be around people and I was lonely. He asked if he could come in, and I quickly told him I couldn't let myself see anyone. To my surprise, he countered it. I get it, Mark said. I know how that feels now, so. And he drops any semblance of caring about my problems and goes off on his own tangent. But little did I know, it turned out to be something I would think myself listening to. Something that, well, depending on how today goes, it might change my life for the better. Now, I'll paraphrase, but he started telling a story about the chip he used to work at. Now, notice I say used to. I'm speaking a lot about my double life theory now because I genuinely think this man may have an even more dated past than I do, but I digress. The place is local, but there's middling reviews from critics and regular people. For those not familiar with the UK, a chippy is a fish and chip shop. Cheap shots get fish with mashed portions of chips, chicken nuggets, pies, great scram, which means food. This place, like I said, it was falling a cup below the competition. Mark wrote there as a delivery driver on staff long before services like Deliveroo or Uber Eats handled 99% of food deliveries in the world. And every day he'd come into work, he'd need to walk past the owner's office to collect the keys to his delivery van. He said he tended to arrive ahead of time so he could pull up a chair and listen. Now, supposedly, every single time he'd hear something new about the state of the restaurant, some new strategy was being proposed to reinvigorate local interest, new menu items, marketing gimmicks, promotional bits, tons of it. However, the owner just never wanted any of it. He was an old bloke, a man of tradition, as Mark kept calling him over and over and over again. Any newfangled way of selling their product would get shot down immediately, especially if it had anything to do with the internet. He was even iffy about marketing via radio, as though he predated pie and mash shops established around 1840 The thing about chippies, though, although this doesn't apply to all obviously not to offend any frequent chippy goers among you, most of the 40s bought wholesale and cooked in the same way as any other chippy you'd go to. If you think about it, all you need to do to differentiate your shop from the next 10 down the road would be to change your menu, but of course they only wouldn't have that either. So the restaurant continued to decline popularity, and somehow so too did the quality of the food. The employees had long since abandoned any hope of the business surviving past a couple of more years. So they were waiting for the day the owner would call a meeting to let them know the ship had sunk. And of course, in that time, they weren't really trying to make the best fish and chips on the planet. Well, of course, eventually that day did come, but not for the reason you might have imagined. It sounds cliche, like something out of an episode of SpongeBob, the King of the Hill, but another restaurant would open up across the street, not a chippy, but a burger joint. It's at this point that even through my door, I can almost tell what Mark's face looks like. He starts talking about this place like a simple-minded citizen of Innsmouth coming face to face with Cthulhu for the first time. Like God himself reached down and dropped the restaurant there himself. I hadn't heard of it, or at least I didn't think I had, but Mark really wanted people to feel just as awestruck as he was. People reserve a table at this restaurant weeks in advance for a burger joint, fast food. The place ordered weeks in advance every single night. And the slow descent that the chippy had been going through turned changed to become a free-fall skydive into the red. The owner, as you can imagine, was furious. He wondered what could it be about the simple burger restaurant that had driven the local populace so crazy. Yes, he was furious, but for the first time in a long time, he was also curious and wanted to know for himself. So he reserved a table for one. Only he could go, because God forbid this restaurant anyone could go to, given a few weeks' notice to show its secrets to anyone but him. A week before his reservation, he gets a letter surprisingly delivered to the chippy rather than his own home. Now, this fed speculation among the employees that the owner actually never left the chippy, which to this day Mark says he cannot confirm nor deny. This letter asked that he arrive exactly on time for his reservation and to wear strictly casual clothing. The owner had a different white polo shirt and beige trousers for all 7 days of the week, so after a lot of huffing and puffing, he dug through his drawers to find an ordinary white shirt and a pair of jeans. Once again, he found these after disappearing into his office, further fueling the conspiracy that he would die if he ever left the chippy, and that his backwards marketing tactics was part of a deal he'd made with an imp that knew of his own checkered past. So you're starting to wonder why everyone in the story has skeletons in their closet, myself included. It's not that important. It's literally not important. The fated night rolls around, and Mark's story, which was already impeccably told through my heavy door, it delivered yet another interesting twist. When the owner arrived at the restaurant, there was nothing to be seen, not a patty inside. The evening's guests all arrived at the same time and walked into the building to find it empty and dark, were it not for the tables illuminated by faint candlelight. The owner, being a self-righteous proud man he is, decided to push past the crowd to investigate. Each of them had been inside a table, and finding his, looked to find no food, no cutlery, no glassware or crockery, but instead a little plastic cow. Roll credits! Yes, I was shocked too. Believe it or not, this story actually does have something to do with the plastic cow. Now, I interrupted Mark to say, I've heard about the restaurant with the plastic cow. My dad told me about that place ages ago. Mark's aura was so smug. I could hear the smile on his face. He looked at me with this, at least I felt like he was looking at me with this. It was like he rolled his head back and looked down at me, not knowing how tall I actually am, and he said, "Unsurprising, sir." And I realized in that moment that I was in the presence of a master storyteller, and I listened closer. My focus did not waver, and I was on the edge of my seat, despite not being sat down at all. David went on spinning his yarn and said that the owner reached down in disbelief, and upon touching the cow, went, wait for it, it didn't really sound like that. It didn't really sound like that at all. It was a weak little McDonald's speaker type of way, but as soon as the first moo was sounded, restaurants all burst from the kitchen, laid the tables neatly, and began taking orders, and that was all that the actors at the restaurant had to offer, but it worked, and his reputation preceded it. The owner tasted the food and said it was all right. He said it was all right. Now, I asked Mark if he had ever eaten, and he said, of course I've had, but I asked what he thought of it, but he just laughed in a low, knowing way. Silly me, I had almost forgotten we were talking criminal to criminal. Now, the owner came back to the chippy long after closing as to be expected, and he was furious. How dare they waltz into his neighborhood and steal his valuable customers with such a novel concept? Nobody goes to a restaurant for atmosphere. They go for food. He didn't really say that, but seeing this place so thoroughly when his customers from him made him want to double down even harder than before. He didn't want to resort to their modern taxi. He was a true Brexit geezer, for God's sake. He was going to make sure this chippy remained the local pride with good old pies. Look at that. And he wouldn't need any modern plastic cows to do it. Now, supposedly, he'd asked Mark for advice, but shut down every suggestion. It was more of a way to validate his own self-assured plan for success, like hearing someone disagree would make him feel more like a hero defending his chippy from the villains who opposed him. But as you already know, eventually the chippy was forced to close, and Mark, much to my surprise, said that he then went to work for the plastic cow restaurant. It was then that Mark's voice took on a great sadness. But that place soon shut down too, sir. And I felt heartbroken. Why, Mark? What happened? And as it turned out, the plastic cow gimmick only carried the restaurant so far. The true twist that gagged me more than the relevance of an anecdote my dad had told me a while back was that, in truth, the food at the plastic cow joint was just okay. Not amazing. Not terrible. The owner of the chippy wasn't being jealous or conceited. He was right. It was just fine. And eventually the big got old, and it wasn't worth the long reservation to see a little plastic cow moo and to then, confused and guilt-ridden, eat his specially prepared brother-in-law. I feel so, Mark said. My hand to God, I promise you that I could hear a tear welling in his eye, that I'd destroy everything I touched, and my heart sank. Mark was an international man of mystery. He probably didn't have multiple identities. He just blamed himself for 2 restaurants closing while he worked for them back to back. He felt like a bad luck charm, an omen. Don't eye this guy. Your business will fail. I told Mark not to worry. There's no way these things are in a delivery guy's control. It's the men in suits who decide when something goes out of business, and he thanked me tearfully. And as he did, I could hear a paper bag being opened. Now, at this point, I'd already made my peace with my burger, having gone very cold to listen to the story of extra proportion, so I didn't question it. I asked him as politely as I could, why did you tell me that story, Mark? What a story, Mark. And he said, well, sir, after all that has happened, I still deliver, and I am happy. Maybe it was the heavy atmosphere of the whole world learning my secret last month. Maybe it was how invested I was in his genuinely fantastic storytelling skill. But hearing those words, I started to cry. Hearing this, Mark started to cry too, and there we were, 2 simple-minded blokes stood crying on opposite sides of a big, big door. And I wanted so badly to hug him, mix him with everything else. There was this feeling of, I think it was disappointment that he hadn't turned out to be some masked killer identity thief. I thought about taking him by the shoulders and telling him everything I wanted to tell myself. Mark, it isn't your fault. One day, you'll deliver for a restaurant and you'll die before it closes. After you do, you'll watch from heaven as it grows and becomes a chain. Now, thank you for being there from the beginning. And I felt the urge to really see him, and against my better judgment, I opened the door. Mark was a lot taller than I expected, but of course he wasn't tall as me. He was 40-something and had a moustache. He looked up at me, standing shoulder to shoulder with Shaquille O'Neal, cooked with horns wrapped in pool noodles with the wings sticking out of my back, and as I should have anticipated, he screamed and he ran away. I can't imagine I'll see him again, because if he sees a delivery for Vox Akuma and Deliveroo, I'll absentmindedly affected again, having seen what he's seen. Sad, the longest face-to-face interaction I'd had in a month lasted a whole 4 seconds. But then I looked down, and I saw that he'd at least taken the courtesy of dropping the bag with my food on the floor. I picked it up, and I went through it looking for my food, noticing that the staples on the top, as I'd heard earlier, had been pulled out. Looking inside, I wanted to pinch myself. It was a plastic cow. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity. It was like a mythical artifact. This was it, the fabled plastic cow in the palm of my hand. Mark must have held onto it after the restaurant closed down and carried it with him, waiting to pass it on to someone who needed it. I felt like tearing up again, but then, suddenly, I incited its wrath. Moo! I screamed, and I threw it at the wall. I'm still underestimating my newfound strength. The plastic cow shattered into pieces, leaving a dent in the hallway. A great sadness overcame me, and I scurried over to try to piece it back together. No good. This cow was long dead. Plastic no more. It turns out, though, that there were more to the plastic cows than met the eye. What was previously in the belly of the cow, now spilled all over the floor, were tiny little white beads. Taking a look at what remained of the cow udder, it had little holes, and I began to laugh. Not only could the plastic cow moo, you could squeeze the udder and milk it too. I felt like I should have brought a tiny plastic bucket and tiny plastic butter churn and so on. But I just couldn't stop thinking about how I'd spent so much of the past year amused by the story about the plastic cow, only to blow it up in the moment I got a hold of it. And then, to learn something brand new about it, I stayed instead of those little pieces for a really, really long time. I think I wanted to see a metaphor for myself in it, but funny enough, I'm the only thing I can't seem to destroy, so I don't think it fits as well as thought it did. I mean, that's it though. I can't count my pretentious patent-seeking brain out entirely. The plastic cow sat at a table mostly in dark for years, mooing once and then waited. It waited and waited and waited, looking up at those people who marveled, smiled. What the hell? What's this cow doing here? Oh, Jesus, it mooed louder than I was expecting. Holy shit, this is funny. Oh, now we get food too? This is amazing. And yeah, that is pretty cool. But the plastic cow had all this milk inside it too, and no one ever knew about that. They were still stuck enjoying the food and thinking about how it could moo. I wonder if it ever started to hurt. You know, it hurts real cows, you know. If you don't milk them, their udders bruise and they get sick and eventually they die. The cow waited for so long for someone to milk it, and when it finally had a chance, it scared me and I smashed it and the milk ran all over the floor. Can't use that pill now. It's all dried up. And I don't have any king's horses or king's men, so I know I'm not going to wind up putting that thing together again. I did try getting the plastic cow to moo again, but to no avail. It mooed its last moo. Oh, I liked how the plastic cow could moo. No, really, it was all I'd ever known about it. The moo was the center of its whole story. The only reason my dad told me about it was because it could moo. I don't think I'd blame anyone for being upset that it couldn't moo no more, but at the same time, knowing all the more I know about it now, I thought more about the plastic cow in the last few days than I ever did in the years since I heard that story for the first time. Oh, I forgot to say that he said the thing. Wait, no, that's the wrong split. Fuck. Anyway, the challenge now is see if you can appreciate how this very heavy-handed metaphor I'm laying down without getting hung up on how weird it is to keep talking about getting milked. And yeah, I shouldn't be surprised. If you think it's funny, you can laugh. I don't mind. But if you were a plastic cow and you woke up one day knowing you were a plastic cow and you felt your udders hurting, knowing you were going to die, if no one milked you, wouldn't you run around begging for someone to come and say, look, I don't just moo, I can do this too. But how'd you get their attention if you can't tell them? Maybe when you start feeling that sting in your udders, it's like hearing the bang of the gun, seeing the XP drop from the ice barrage, hearing the doctor say, there's no easy way to say, oh, I've already been thrown. It's just psh, taking a while to hit the wall. Well, better get settled in right. After all, once I do, I'll finally see all that milk I was hanging on to, and that's what it's all for after all. No one milks a cow to save its life. They're just thirsty. Ka-zook! Ka-zook! Nah! Ka-zook! Ka-zook! Nah! Ka-zook! Ka-zook! Nah! Ka-zook! Nah! Ka zook doon 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 ka zook nah ha doon boom 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 ka zook nah